sweetie.
Don't go there.
Being a pioneer of the psychological horror genre, the Silent Hill series is well regarded for its exploration of the human psyche. These games excel at blending their unique takes on psychological and survival horror, leaving us with, more often than not, complex yet compelling stories. For a while, this was the general layout of a Silent Hill title, exploring the broken minds of various characters in the effort of unraveling the mystery behind the town's shady, cult-ridden background, or reaching the personal climax of the protagonist's guilt-driven journey. As the series expanded, however, the classic Silent Hill formula started to grow old for developers and critics alike. Even as far back as Silent Hill 3, there were major disagreements on where the series would go between Konami and the original developers, Team Silent. This would all come to a head when Western Studios got the chance to work on the franchise. So far, we've covered 3 of the 4 Western entries on this channel, so we've seen each and every different direction and subgenre that Downpour, Homecoming, and Origins had pulled the series towards. But none of these 3 games would come close to the spin that 2009's Shattered Memories would put on the series. Very similar to Origins, Shattered Memories began development with a shock to fans of the franchise, as the game was being developed for the Nintendo Wii. Not only had the mainline series never been seen before on a Nintendo console, but the Wii, and Nintendo as a whole, doesn't exactly come to mind first when thinking survival horror. The developers, Climax Studios, cited the immersive feeling of the Wii Remote to be a major inspiration towards development for this platform, as well as the mindset of users of hardcore platforms like the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. Whatever the fuck that means. This decision to exclusively release Shattered Memories for the Wii would come back to bite Climax. Sales were reportedly below expectations, and on January 19th, 2010, a port of the game was released on PlayStation consoles to help the studio break even. Now, despite the low sales, the game was doing pretty well critically, receiving praise and awards for its performance on the Wii. But how did longtime fans of Silent Hill receive the game? While it was a reimagining of the classic Silent Hill 1 story, Shattered Memories, down to its very core, is an entirely different experience. That's why I wanted to focus on this title for our final stroll through this troubled town. Tonight, we'll find out if this game loses its identity in the fog, or if it embraces the psychological roots that Silent Hill has had since its inception, with what I believe to be the most experimental entry in the mainline series so far, Silent Hill: Shattered Memories. Before we can even press start on the game, we're shown a couple of interesting details, just in the main menu, that will become recurring elements throughout our story. First, we're flashed with a bright red warning screen, telling us about this game's core mechanic and most captivating feature, the psychological profile. As I mentioned in the intro, Shattered Memories tries to truly embrace Silent Hill's psychological horror roots, to the point where it's overtly the main focus of the game. This warning tells us that the choices I make throughout the story will change the world and characters around us, adapting to my specific psychological profile that the game will keep tabs on. This was super exciting for me. I love games that tailor themselves to your actions, and just seeing this warning screen reminded me of Until Dawn, which uses a very similar system for its gameplay. So the way this psych profile works is that certain actions you take or ignore in the game will attribute points to different hidden categories. With enough points in a specific category, details about the game itself will change. This could be as major as exploring entirely different areas and buildings, or as minor as switching up the decor around the environment. I'll do my best to mention each significant difference you can encounter as they come along. Second, when pressing start on the main menu, a VHS tape begins to play of a little girl running up to who we can assume to be her father. The tape will start and pause each time we reach a new menu, which was a really cool detail to immediately start immersing the player into the game's lore, and already had me asking questions just seconds into the game. This tape will seamlessly continue as we finish up on the main menu, and we're shown a happy memory of a father and daughter at some kind of amusement park together. Just as the two get behind one of those cardboard cutout photo ops, the tape suddenly gets rewinded back to the beginning. Over the next minute or so, the person watching this tape repeatedly rewinds these first 20 seconds, clearly reminiscing. The silence between these abrupt rewinds fills this happy memory with a somber tone. It's pretty clear that something bad must have happened to one of the two in this video. As the final rewind plays out, the VHS tape fades into the interior of an office building, where we can see an unfamiliar man working at a laptop. We follow him around his office, where he makes a fucking tiny drink. Wow, fucking like a teaspoon of drink in that thing. 95% ice. And his secretary tells him that his client has arrived for their appointment early. He allows the client inside, and we immediately cut to a car losing control on a dark, icy road. The car inevitably crashes, and the man inside unbuckles himself and opens the door, only to faceplant directly into the snow. There's not much time to ponder what's going on with learner's permit here. We're put right back into that office building, in a first-person view from the eyes of that client mentioned earlier. It seems that this guy we've been following around is our therapist. And we aren't really supposed to know this yet, but I'll let you in on a little secret. This is Dr. Michael Kaufman. Kaufman, in previous Silent Hill games, is the mysterious director of Alchemilla Hospital, who has ties to the dark cult that essentially runs the town, the Order. Here in Shattered Memories, however, he's nothing more than a therapist. Already we're seeing a major difference between Silent Hill 1 and this reimagining, but go ahead and get used to it, cause there's plenty more to come. In fact, I won't be bringing up too many more comparisons to Silent Hill 1 for the rest of this video, because these two games are completely incomparable. They really took the story of the first game and ran with it, so if you want to give Shattered Memories a fair chance, you really gotta let go of everything you know about Silent Hill. Anyway, Kaufman tells us that he's aware we've had problems with previous therapists, apparently, but his sessions will be like no other. In order to get started though, he first directs us to fill out a form. Man, I didn't know just how spot on my comparison to Until Dawn would turn out till now. The form is just a few true or false questions about my thoughts and feelings on different topics, and just as I'll continue to do for the entire game, I answered each one honestly. Now I'm gonna be honest, through all of these. Ooh. Cut the cameras for that one. After completing the form, Kaufman takes it and looks it over for a few seconds, double checking to make sure I've never cheated on a partner. Don't know why I gave him that impression, but regardless, he accepts the form and says we'll get started. Just as he says this, we return to the car crash, where the dude laid out in the snow regains consciousness and starts calling out for someone named Cheryl, which can only mean that we are playing as Harry Mason. Everything we know about Harry so far remains true to his Silent Hill 1 counterpart. He's a father, passing through Silent Hill when he gets into a car accident and his daughter, Cheryl, goes missing. Our goal, of course, is to track her down and bring her to safety, but that's easier said than done when working with Silent Hill. Before we head off into the snowstorm, I take a second to familiarize myself with the controls. Okay, that's my flashlight button. That does nothing. That does nothing.
Cheryl!
Oh.
Cheryl! Cheryl!
I found the Cheryl button.
Cheryl!
Jason!
Cheryl!
Jason! And we take a short walk through a junkyard into an auto shop. There's not much of interest in this building, so let's take a second to talk about an issue that's already come to my attention. So, Shattered Memories was built with immersion in mind. It's why the main menu itself is its own cutscene. Part of this plan to put immersion first was to eliminate loading screens, which sounds good on paper, but in practice, didn't work out perfectly. In order to get rid of loading screens, the game will load each area on the fly as you enter them, which means that every time you interact with the door, the game will have a major lag spike for a few seconds. Add in the fact that doors are fucking magnetized in this game and will suck Harry in from 3 feet away, and you've got a pretty common annoyance on your hands. I'll admit, it's impressive for this game to be able to pull something like this off with 15-year-old hardware, but the stutter is so jarring that I thought there was a problem with my game, so I don't know that they achieved the immersion they were aiming for. Anyway, like I said, there's practically nothing in this entire building. The only thing worth mentioning is when I accidentally got profiled for staring at bathroom graffiti. Hold on, I feel like I'm having a stroke.
Cammy.
What the fuck was that? Who's... Oh my god! I didn't realize what I was looking at! Oh, fucking Harry, you freak! Oh my god, she's a fucking cheerleader! Oh, Harry, you have a wife. Or at least you did at some point.
Cheryl.
I didn't mean to do that. Don't psychologically profile me for that. While exiting the building, we get a sneak peek at how puzzles are gonna work throughout the game. They're pretty hands-on. You actually get to move, slide, or adjust components of the puzzle yourself, which lends a hand to the trend of immersion. Once on the outside, we're free to explore this slice of Silent Hill, where the usual foggy atmosphere has been replaced with a cold and dark winter aesthetic. Silent Hill is in the middle of one hell of a blizzard, judging by the 12-foot wall of snow blocking our path. Glad to see the Bottomless Chasms got the day off for this one. The stroll through town guides us to a clothing store, where we solve a very simple puzzle, grabbing a key from an employee's jacket and heading out the back door. They damn sure didn't want you to get lost on this puzzle, giving you vocal instruction, a fucking spotlight, and a giant note on the door, just in case the other 2 clues were lost on you. This path takes us to a back alley playground, inhabited by the local Shadow Child. Always great to see them. We can grab a key from a soda can to keep marching forward. A lot of keys here, and get used to that, because there's not really loot in this game, for a reason that'll become clear later. This does mean that a lot of the exploring you'll do will ultimately feel pointless, as unless you're looking for an item to solve a puzzle, there's nothing else to gain from taking a look at your surroundings. This does get slightly mitigated by a feature we'll unlock very soon, but we'll talk about that in a sec. Past the park, we come to the first significant psych profile variation, the branches of the story that change depending on your actions. At the end of the street, we can find 2 buildings, the Diner 5-2, which might be a reference to the Cafe 5-2 from Silent Hill 1, and the Good Old Days Bar. Now, which of these 2 restaurants is open depends on your psych profile. More specifically, how you answered those questions on the forum earlier. Both the Diner and the Good Old Days have variations of their appearances themselves. The 5-2 can be a classic, run-of-the-mill diner, or it can have neon, seductive undertones, while the Good Old Days can either be an Irish pub or a sports bar with the lights on or off. In my playthrough, I got the Good Old Days sports bar with the lights off, where we find a lone waitress cleaning up for the night. She invites Harry in for a drink, but Harry's all business tonight, asking her for information on Cheryl. She's got no idea where Cheryl is, and can't call for help due to the storm knocking out the phone lines. As a last-ditch effort, Harry shows her a picture of Cheryl he keeps in his wallet, but her attention is more drawn to his ID, where it says that Harry lives just a few blocks away on Levin Street. Harry seems to be surprised at his own address. It looks like that crash really put him out of order. Right after this revelation, I thought a fucking bomb was going off, but no, that's just Harry's alarming-ass ringtone.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Oh my god. I guess the ringtone also reminds Harry that he owns a cell phone, as we've now unlocked the ability to use it for various features across the game. Reading the map, taking pictures, calling numbers, it's all done right from this menu. This also unlocks some collectibles we can find around the world, which essentially takes the place of loot in this game. Our first example of these collectibles is called an echo message, and we find it by taking a picture of that shadow child back at the playground. Echo messages are pieces of conversations that reveal more about the locations and characters you'll discover throughout the world. As you collect them, you'll be able to put together a coherent story for that area. Different locations give different echoes, so it's not one giant continuous plot. The coolest part about these echoes is that each message has several variations that can play depending on your psyche profile, wildly changing their story and meaning with every playthrough. Now, because there's so many of these and so many variations, we won't be going through all of them. And I'll bring them up if they contain something important, but other than that, we'll leave them be. Also, on a personal note, while I think these messages definitely add to the story and the world building, they don't scratch the same itch that finding actual loot does for me, so for these echoes to be the only thing you can find in the environments, it was a bit of a letdown. Anyway, back to the game. Our new objective is to head back to Harry's house on Levin Street. To do so, we'll need to retrace our steps until we reach the main strip of Silent Hill, but we get a mysterious phone call that stops us in our tracks.
Cheryl?
Daddy? Daddy?
Sweetie, you're okay? Are you at home? Sweetie, wait there. Wait for me.
You have to run, Daddy. You can't fight them. Run!
Uh-oh.
What? Is somebody with you? Cheryl, I'm coming to get you. Damn it!
Oh, not me. Oh, me. This is Shattered Memories' Otherworld, a very different take from anything we've seen before, but still on brand for the game's winter setting. While I don't think this version is as cool as the off-putting rust and blood-covered environments we typically see, I do like how dramatic this Otherworld is. There's barely any semblance to the structures that were there before, with everything being covered in a thick layer of ice and snow. The jagged icebergs shooting up from the ground and destroying everything in their path right before our eyes, it reminds me of the Otherworld transition in Downpour, which I also really liked. Of course, with the Otherworld comes fucked up monsters, and if you'll recall, Harry has nothing to defend himself with besides a flashlight and his cell phone. Somehow, I don't think we're gonna be able to call the police, so, it looks like we've run dry on options here. As we push through the ice, we can see some sort of creature stalking Harry's every move until we reach a wide open area and a familiar static plays from Harry's phone. We're about to experience the most controversial change made in Shattered Memories, the complete and utter lack of combat in this entire game. The only options you have when dealing with enemies is run or hide, a stark contrast from the previous games. A huge part of survival horror is combat and resource management, of which Shattered Memories has neither. So we've completely scrapped half of what makes a Silent Hill game in favor of a full focus on psychological horror. With the absence of traditional survival horror mechanics, there's a ton of slack that'll need to be picked up, and I suppose we'll have to find out if Shattered Memories can succeed without a core part of the series. I can already say that we've come across two issues that are a result of the lack of combat. The first being the disappointing exploration that we talked about earlier, and the second revolves around the enemies themselves. The creatures chasing and stalking Harry are called raw shocks, and they are the only enemy in the game. I understand that with combat not being a focus, or an element at all, you don't really have to spend too much time designing enemies, but there's just one? Frankly, that's fucking crazy. I mean, we're talking about a franchise that's known for its monster design. The symbolism behind the creatures in Silent Hill is such an important part of the characters and world that, without them, Silent Hill loses a huge part of its meaning. Now, to be fair, the raw shocks do change their appearance slightly, depending on the psyche profile, but these changes are nowhere near enough to make up for there being only one enemy. This is one of the biggest problems I had with Shattered Memories. There's no reason for it, and it feels like a complete misunderstanding of Silent Hill. Well, if there's only one enemy, we can knock out explaining their mechanics in one go. Silver lining, I guess. The only time we encounter the Rorschachs is inside the Otherworld. You can't find them walking the streets of Silent Hill, and again, since they're the only enemy, that takes a lot of the horror aspect away from the game. You know exactly when you're safe or in danger, and I believe that blurring that line is essential for a great horror atmosphere. There's no health items in the game, so the Rorschachs don't exactly hurt you. They kinda just jump on Harry, and you gotta do a QTE to shake them off. The more they jump on you, the more stamina Harry loses, until eventually he slows to a crawl and is piled up on by the Rorschachs. That's a game over, if that wasn't clear. But that's about it for them. You'd think with there only being one enemy, they'd have a little more to them, but that is not the case, unfortunately. With the enemies out of the way, let's talk about these Otherworld sections for a second. They're basically all the same. You're left in a sprawling, open area with several different paths to take, but the ultimate goal is just to get from one side of the place to the other while sprinting away from the Rorschachs. It's very reminiscent of those awful chase sequences from Downpour, but at the very least, you're given a much bigger area to run through, so it's a little easier to avoid enemies, and I guess you get some eye candy to keep you from getting bored. That said, these places are a little barren. There's almost nothing to collect or even obstacles to throw you off course. There are hiding spots across these levels that you can use to lose chase with the shocks, or objects you can throw on the floor to slow them down, but they didn't seem worth the time to me. I usually just beeline straight to the exit. The only form of defense you can find in the Otherworld are these flares scattered across the environment. The shocks are afraid of heat, so when holding a flare, they won't come towards Harry for a few seconds. You can also throw them on the ground to create a temporary barrier that the shocks won't cross. That about wraps everything up for both the Otherworld and the enemies for the rest of the game. So let's go ahead and skip to the end of this section. After running through various parts of the town, Harry makes it all the way back to his house on Levin Street, turning and smiling at it, thinking Cheryl must be inside. Before we can find out, however, we're pulled back into Dr. Kaufman's office, where he's got another evaluation for us. Kaufman tells us that this session will be focused on family, and wants us to answer a few true or false questions. The questions don't get too deep, asking if I'm a private person, if it takes a while for people to get to know me, and if I'd rather spend time with friends or family. After answering his questions, Kaufman directs us to a coloring page he wants us to fill in. I took this very seriously.
No. You're going to like this.
After finishing up my masterpiece, we're put back with Harry, where the consequences that drawing has on the story are immediately shown to us. Oh, wow. I've certainly made a home for myself. As Harry approaches the door, an older man and his wife opens it. This causes Harry to freak out, screaming for these people to get out of his house. But the couple says they've lived here for 14 years. Their daughter, Katie, makes some noise in the background, and of course, Harry thinks Cheryl is inside, only adding to his rage. The door is slammed in Harry's face, understandably, and the couple calls the police, who, impressively, arrive within seconds. Now, it isn't just any cop that shows up to Harry's scene. No, it's someone we're pretty familiar with. Is that Sybil with her titties out? Put those away! That's right, it's Sybil Bennett from Silent Hill 1, showing so much cleavage that I'm not even sure I can show her on YouTube. Sybil's appearance, much like many of the characters throughout the game, will change with your psych profile. Now, I wasn't sure why I got the XXX version of Sybil here, but looking back on my answers to that form earlier, yeah, that checks out. Sybil takes Harry's ID as he frantically tries to explain the situation, and finds that the Levin Street address is, in fact, listed under Harry's name. Confused, Sybil decides to take Harry back to the station, to which Harry disagrees, saying his daughter is still inside that house. But Sybil is a cop, so Harry begrudgingly gets into the car. And the two make some small talk as they head off into the night. Sybil insists on taking Harry to the hospital after learning about his crash, but they don't make it too far before they're blinded by the snow. Sybil tells us to stay put as she hops out to get a look at where we are. A command I'm sure will follow.
Wait here. I'm just gonna check where we are.
Yeah, I'll be here. Psych, bitch. Well, that's not how I envisioned that going. Oh, you fucking bastard. You've locked me in. I thought police cars had a divider to keep prisoners in the back seat, but that's not the case for Sybil's cruiser. We go ahead and scoot on up to the driver's seat. Rest assured I tried to steal the car, but alas, Sybil was one step ahead and took the keys with her. She didn't lock all the doors though, and we pop open the driver's side to find ourselves in the middle of fucking nowhere. And somehow, in the 10 seconds it took for us to get out of the car, half of the damn thing was buried in the snow. I tried to call and update Sybil on this, but, I felt like making a call to HR after this one.
Okay. Mr. Mason, whereabouts are you calling from?
Why?
It's okay, Mr. Mason. Remain calm. I just want to send someone out to help you.
No.
What the fuck was that? No. Harry is stranded in the woods, with no signs of Sybil or anyone else for that matter, so we're gonna have to get ourselves out of here. First things first, we hop a fence and pass through an abandoned cabin, only to end up deeper inside said woods. Great. I spent a few minutes looking around, collected some echo messages about a high school girl that was drugged out here. Fun stuff. Until we find a second cabin that looks promising. Oh, and I forgot to mention, around Silent Hill you can find various phone numbers on billboards, flyers, etc. You can call each one and get some dialogue. It's almost never helpful, or even important, but for some reason, I love doing it and called every number I found.
Members of the public are advised to avoid travel to state parks and forests until the warning is lifted. In event of an emergency, please contact local emergency services.
Okay. Thanks for the help, jackass. Similar to the first, this second cabin is just another gateway into more desolate woods. I really feel like I'm making progress here. You know, it's sections like these where the lack of resources or combat becomes a real issue. This long stretch of nothing starts turning the game into a walking simulator, just mindlessly running from point A to point B. I didn't give up hope on the collectibles. I still tried to scour every area to have the best experience possible. It just gets rough with these open world-esque sections. Finally, at the end of a long path, we find a third cabin. This one looks a little less abandoned, so I guess that's a good sign. Or not, who knows. Regardless, I went ahead and let myself in. There's no one home, so I took that as an invitation to raid the place, but we come up empty-handed. But we did manage to find the bear torture room, so that's nice. Oh! Must have missed this on the first pass. What the fuck is this? Okay. As we head out the back of the cabin, we get a phone call from Sybil, who somehow got our number. Oh, Sybil.
Harry?
How'd you get this number?
I need to find my daughter. Christ. I'm not under arrest, am I?
Harry? You're worrying me. Think this through. You need to come with me.
Sorry, I'm heading back to town.
Wait, Harry, don't...
Harry's about ready to head back into town, and so am I, so we set off once again. We've got a long path ahead of us, leading to, Jesus Christ, another cabin. We do have to grab a key for this one, so I guess that shakes it up a little, huh? Thankfully, this is the last cabin we'll have to go through, as upon entering this one, we're rushed by a shadow child, and the otherworld takes over once again. Unfortunately, since every otherworld section functions just the same, we've got to retrace all of our steps, right back to the very beginning of the forest. Yeah, this place fucking sucks. It just wasn't planned out very well, I feel. This whole 30 minutes essentially boils down to an uneventful jog through an empty forest. Barely anything interesting to look at, and aside from the few echoes, there's literally nothing to do here. At the very least, we're in a chase sequence now, which means we can sprint back to the start instead of the light jog Harry's accustomed to. While we're here, I had some time to soak in the atmosphere of Shattered Memories' Otherworld, and honestly, it's pretty solid. The sound design in these sections is a bit haunting. Hearing the screeches of the shocks in the distance, and the foreboding static of Harry's phone fading in and out. If there were any real combat in this game, this would likely induce some tension. You really do get the feeling that danger is all around you, and you can't quite pin the direction on where it might come from. It's just a shame that none of this really matters, given how simple it is to complete these chase sequences. We do get to spice things up for the finale of this sequence. As we make our way through an abandoned building, we find ourselves locked inside a room with nothing but an echo message. Grabbing the message, we hear a mother busy on the phone while her kid annoys her. The kid's trying to show her a little tune she made on her toy piano. And if we listen closely, we can recreate those 4 notes with a toy resting on a nearby couch. Hitting these 4 notes will successfully complete the puzzle, allowing us to finish this chase sequence, and I think it's about time we talk about the elephant in the room. These puzzles are awful, at least they have been so far. It's almost insulting how simple they are. I mean, we're finding the keys to locked doors before we find the locked door, for God's sake. Everything's fed to you like a tutorial, even though we're over 2 hours deep into the game at this point. It just felt like a spit in the face to me. You know, when I first realized that combat was out of the question, I had hoped that the puzzles in this game would take the focus instead. But clearly, that hasn't happened so far. Unless things get drastically better from here on out, this is gonna be another major hit this game is taking for me. With such a cool concept this game has, I didn't give up hope and swallowed my feelings so far, pushing forward through the icy otherworld and arriving at a bridge just outside of Silent Hill. Crossing the bridge will lead us straight to Midwich High School. Go cuckoos, I guess. We can jump the fence into the football field, where Sybil gives us another call. She's worried for Harry, clearly thinking he's lost his fucking mind, and urges him to head into the gym, as there's an emergency shelter set up inside. Harry agrees, but says that if Cheryl isn't here, he's gonna keep looking for her. As soon as the call ends, we're back in the office with Dr. Kaufman. This session is all about the glory days of high school, something Dr. K seems to reminisce about quite often. He starts off by stating some descriptors to define myself during high school, and once we're done with that, he again directs our attention to the table. Laid out in front of us is a school schedule that Kaufman wants us to use in order to plan our perfect day. I'm just choosing my 4 favorite subjects to fill each period, and this, of course, will have consequences back in Silent Hill. Top it all off, get some sex ed in there, just a little bit of sex ed, never hurt anyone at the end of the day. At the end of the session, Kaufman says that he wants to dive into the bad experiences we've had during high school, and the game cuts right back to Harry. I'm sure that means nothing. Let's head inside, shall we? And the door to the entrance is locked, but that's alright, because sitting 12 feet away is the key we need. I mean, what can I say? The puzzles here are revolutionary, truly. We pass through a supply closet and end up right back on the streets of Silent Hill. Fuck the gym, I guess. Harry's heading to the strip club. Yeah, we can take a bit of a detour on our way to the gym, exploring the town a bit and grabbing some echo messages along the way. There's a particularly disturbing one found inside the club about a father enjoying a female worker's resemblance to his own daughter. Silent Hill's always a joy to walk through, huh? Other than the echoes, there's nothing else out here, so we circle back to Midwich and get back on track towards the gym. I should mention that there's a bit of a choking epidemic surging through the school. Through some echoes and flyers, we find out that quite a few kids, and a janitor, are playing the choking game. The rules are simple. Choke yourself until you fall the fuck out. Doesn't take much to entertain the youth, I see. Anyway, shockingly, in a game with nothing to loot or fight, our time in Midwich is cut pretty short. There's a few echoes here and there, but nothing important or eye-catching. We did get to cut open a frog, but that was only for a collectible. Sorry, Kermit. It's only when we reach the chemistry class that we get some action. That same shadow child from earlier screams and runs away from Harry. The other world doesn't follow her this time, but she does lead us to one of the more eventful puzzles of the game. In an art class, we can use some miniature statues in a shadow puzzle to write out a phone number for us. Calling the number sees a ghost answer and unlock a nearby door, allowing us to catch up with the shadow kid. The second we do, however, we get a text from... well, I'll let you see this for yourself. Dahlia. Check out the hot new outfit. What do you mean, Dahlia? I'm pretty sure there's only one Dahlia in Silent Hill. And, that is not the Dahlia I'm familiar with. We're gonna put that on the back burner for now. Mostly because I don't even want to think about Dahlia in that context, but also because we're heading inside the gym. And we've got a new friendly face to meet. As we approach the center of the gym, an unfamiliar woman takes the stage, and in one of the most bizarre sequences of the entire game, gives Harry a dedicated performance. What the fuck is happening? So fuck Cheryl. Even though she's been missing for several hours in a goddamn blizzard, Harry explicitly doesn't interrupt her routine and decides to have a little chat with her. Through this, we learn that her name is Michelle Valdez, and she's here for her high school reunion. Quite a turnout, I see. Michelle's appearance, along with the gym itself, is one of those things that can change depending on your psych profile, but they're not as dramatic as other variations, so we'll skim over this one. Harry, after wandering around the point for a while, finally asks Michelle if she's seen Cheryl, to which Michelle has a strange response.
Her name is Cheryl.
Cheryl Mason?
Yeah.
There was a Cheryl Mason when I was here. She was above me at school.
Must be a different girl, same name. She's 7.
I'll show you. Come look. There you go. That's an old photo. You say she ran off?
No, we were in a car accident. That can't be my daughter.
How many Cheryl Masons could there be in a small town like this? She even looks like you.
Yeah, that's a little weird. More weird than a coincidence allows. The photo on the wall definitely resembles the Cheryl/Heather Mason we know from Silent Hill 3. But how is it possible for her to be all grown up here? It's gonna take a little more convincing for Harry to believe this to be anything more than a coincidence. So Michelle takes him to the principal's office in hopes to pull up Cheryl's school records from his PC. The PC is locked, requiring us to reset the principal's password. To do this, we have to answer his security questions, the answers to which are all around the room, and in true Shattered Memories fashion, this is pretty simple. For the most part. My star sign, not that I believe that crap. I don't fucking know what star sign November is. Oh, God, why do they expect me to know this shit? This is the second time. Fucking birthstones and star signs and shit. I'm in. Just as we crack open Windows 95 here, the whole thing goes to shit and glitches out on us. You'd think we'd be out of options, but conveniently, the screen is clear on every important detail regarding Cheryl. So, it looks like this is our Cheryl, who went to Midwich High School however many years ago. How this is remotely possible is unknown to us. Maybe there's a timeline convergence, who knows, but Harry plans to get to the bottom of it. The final line of Cheryl's records leaves us with a phone number that Harry heads outside to call.
Yes?
Cheryl?
No, Dahlia. You want me to find her? Who's calling?
It's her father, Harry Mason. Is she okay?
Harry?
Is she okay?
Who the hell do you think you are?
Sorry? What's the...
Leave me alone!
Well, I guess we have to confront the Dahlia situation now. Based on her reaction to Harry's name, it's obvious that the two share some sort of connection, and it sounds fairly hostile. From the tone of her voice, she doesn't exactly sound like the older woman we know from Silent Hill 1. So, I guess that picture Harry was sent earlier is Shattered Memories' Dahlia Gillespie. I don't think I have to state how fucking weird that is, and I'm sure many first-time players also shared that same sentiment, but we've got to work with the story we're being given here. It's not made clear if Cheryl is related to Dahlia in this short phone call, but Dahlia does seem to know Cheryl, based on the "want me to find her" line. So we know that Dahlia is somehow connected to both Harry and Cheryl, but no clue how yet. Again, this is just such a departure from the source material. There's barely anything to even speculate on, given how little we know about the situation. I don't know, to me, it feels like a weird decision to take the established lore and world of Silent Hill and completely flip it on its head. On paper, taking some older characters and putting them through a new spin on their stories sounds kinda interesting. But the slow and convoluted way this story is being conveyed to us just left me feeling lost and confused for most of my playthrough. And not in a fun mystery sort of way. It definitely doesn't help that I naturally draw comparisons to the previous games, but when you're using characters whose stories have already been told, what else do you expect? This is all just to say that so far, I'm not really sold on this retelling of Silent Hill. But we have a lot left to cover, so there's still a chance to turn things around. After the call, the world freezes over, and we've got a chase sequence through the halls of Midwich. The shocks have taken on a new appearance for me, becoming female. Christ, you take sex ed once and suddenly the game treats you like a common whore. This is just another run-of-the-mill chase sequence. Point A to point B, you get the gist. But upon reaching the exit, we're stopped in our tracks once again. Just like the previous chase, we get an echo here, containing a puzzle that we'll have to solve in order to escape the other world. This time around, we're forced to head back into the winding halls of Midwich in order to gather 3 photos from 3 separate locations. A little annoying, sure, but nothing we can't handle. As we go around gathering the photos, we realize that we're collecting blackmail for someone. These photos are of a student in the locker rooms and the showers, even embracing someone in an empty classroom. When we collect all 3 and head back, we get to see the final shots we took. And the victim in these photos appears to be Cheryl. Comments are made on each photo from the bully, and it's revealed that Cheryl had been sleeping with one of her teachers. It seems like Cheryl had a pretty rough time at Midwich. I guess some things don't change in this version of events. It's no wonder she didn't show at the reunion, and I think we got a feel for what Kaufman was hinting towards at the beginning of this section. With the photos in hand, the iced-over figures blocking our exit are shattered, allowing us to pass through the school's front entrance and back out onto the streets of Silent Hill. It's here where Michelle catches up with us, and Harry, now being convinced that something strange is happening here, decides to check out the address listed on Cheryl's school records. The problem is, that's across town, and Harry's got no ride. Luckily, Michelle swoops in to save the day, offering to lead Harry to her work, where they can borrow her boss's SUV for the evening. So we follow Michelle on a long, awkward stroll through Silent Hill. So, about this weather, huh? It's not all quiet. Michelle eventually opens up about her work. She's a barista and singer at The Balkan, which you might recognize as the church Harry meets Dahlia in during the original Silent Hill, but here it's a popular nightclub. She also spills about some relationship issues she's having. Don't know why that's any of Harry's business, but I suppose we'll play therapist for a while. And after coaching Michelle through her situationship, we arrive at the Balkan. Of course, the theme of this place changes with your psych profile, becoming dark red and moody, or dimming the place with blue lights, or just kinda dead, like mine was. Anyway, Michelle has to take a call, so she tasks us with finding the car keys, and we're left to our own devices. Now, I know I brought this up during the forest section earlier, but just take a look at how barren this place is. Throughout the entire first floor of this building, there is absolutely nothing to interact with or look at. No items to collect, no environmental pieces, not even a fucking poster for Harry to comment on. And like I said, I brought this up earlier, so I won't stay on it too long. It just feels like major parts of this game weren't finished yet. That's the only way I can describe it. With nothing on the ground floor, we head upstairs to Michelle's dressing room and grab the car keys. I also tried to rob her, but it seems as if someone beat me to it already. Hey, bitch, you ain't got nothing. Good lord. Who robbed you? I was hoping it was gonna be me. Also, Dahlia sends us another message here that totally didn't make me want to throw up a little. Oh. Okay. Thanks, Dahlia. That's disgusting. When we return the keys to Michelle, she offers us a toast to the lonely souls wandering the streets, trying to reassure Harry that he'll see his daughter and his wife again. Harry never mentioned a wife, so when he questions Michelle about this, she says she assumed from the ring on his finger. Harry takes a look down at his hand to find a wedding ring that hadn't been there before. Seeing this ring makes Harry feel sick, and he slips away to collect himself in the bathroom. After having a little Sunderland moment in the mirror, he heads back out to Michelle, ready to hit the road, only to find that Michelle is gone. In her place sits a young blonde woman, and Harry immediately asks where Michelle is.
This is out of control. I came in here with a girl called Michelle. She was going to drive me to Simmons Street. Who are you?
Are you on something? I'm Dahlia.
I can't even begin to tell you what's going on here. I had no idea what was happening, or why Dahlia Gillespie is wearing a crop top in a nightclub. Didn't think I'd ever be saying that, but here we are. Dahlia tries to remind Harry of who she is. saying he's a fun guy to be with, and based off of her playful tone, she's obviously implying that she and Harry are hooking up. Add another point to that never thought I'd say this board. It's a small detail, but during Harry and Dahlia's conversation, Dahlia takes off Harry's glasses, saying, "What are you wearing these for?" Just like the wedding ring, another detail we've known about Harry from the beginning of the game has now changed. It almost seems like Harry's entire story or history is changing around him, and just like us, Harry has no idea why or how this is happening. While I was playing, I had this theory that multiple versions of reality were colliding into one, which would explain these different attributes of Harry's life shifting around. At one point, I even thought that this whole game was taking place in Harry's mind during the events of Silent Hill 3, and the game would end with Harry dead in that chair. I don't know, I think those theories were products of me grasping at straws, trying to make sense of the unexplained events happening throughout the story. This game really leaves you in the dark, with very little to go off of, and I don't know if I'm a big fan of that. I liked the breadcrumbs you're given in previous Silent Hill games, where even if you couldn't quite figure out exactly what was happening, you still had a pretty good idea of the direction the story was headed. Here in Shattered Memories, it's one mysterious thing after the other with little to no context. Harry himself tends to just go along with things rather than question them, so we really get nothing in the way of answers. Now, I'll admit, this story has had a few good qualities. For example, it's a nice touch to have the Balkan remain the place you first meet Dahlia. A bit of clever foreshadowing there. Anyway, proving my earlier point, Dahlia mentions taking the SUV to Simmons Street and meeting up with Cheryl. And suddenly, Harry has no qualms about the situation. Harry, the guy that was playing armchair psychologist with Michelle and her fucked up relationship in the back alley earlier, has nothing to say about the mysterious young woman abducting him right now. Yeah, okay, fuck it. We get in the car with Dahlia and drive off to Simmons Street, where Harry finally starts asking some questions. Harry asks how long they've known each other, and Dahlia responds, a few years. He says since the car crash, he can't remember things. He tries to focus on details, but they all slip away. You know, maybe the story really is that simple. Harry suffering the side effects after a major accident. Or maybe this game takes inspiration from the bad ending of Silent Hill 1, where everything is revealed to be nothing more than a dream inside the mind of Harry Mason as he's dying after his car crash. Just something to think about as we push through more of the story. Anyway, Dahlia interrupts our contemplating with one of the craziest lines we've heard so far.
You really don't know who I am.
No.
Sid and Nancy?
Who are Sid and Nancy?
My tits? You named them?
Our drive is cut short by a drawbridge blocking the road. Dahlia suggests that Harry climb up to the control room himself and lower the bridge. Like that isn't fucking crazy, but we head on up there, having to solve a puzzle with the help of the drawbridge operator over the phone.
Listen, to lower the bridge, here's what you do. A colored light will come on. If it's blue, move the center lever. Now if it's red, move the left lever. If it's green, don't do anything, just wait. You just gotta keep doing this until the bridge engages, okay?
Why the fuck would it be like that? I gotta play fucking Simon Says to get this shit working? Jesus Christ. It took me a second, because I'm bad at following simple directions, I suppose, but we get it done and head back to the car. Once inside, Dahlia gets angry with us, thinking Harry is lying about the whole situation just to blow her off. But she doesn't get to finish. As she stops the car in the middle of the bridge, the other world consumes her, turning her, and the world around us, to ice. The bridge rips from its steel beams, contorting around itself, causing the car to start slipping off the road. Harry tries to prevent this, but with Dahlia frozen at the wheel, there's not much he can do to stop the car from plunging into the frigid waters below. Trapped underneath the mess of steel and ice, we have to figure out a way out of the car before we drown. My first thought was to equalize the pressure so we can open the door, which requires us to roll down all the windows and let the water rush in. Somehow, despite the car being completely submerged with 3 windows rolled down, the water stops at chest level, which means we can't open the doors. My flashlight does float to the surface though, so that's good, I guess. Once we pick it up, a raw shock starts beating at the window, The car is covered in ice and it starts writing messages to us. The ice shatters the windows, filling the car with water and allowing us to open the door. Outside of the weird ending to that one, I think this is one of my favorite puzzles of the entire game. It's simple, but there's a lot of tension in the situation that makes for a good time. Harry swims to safety, leaving the ice sculpture of Dahlia behind, and crawls onto the remains of the bridge. As the shock sets in from the whole situation, Harry freaks out for a few seconds before passing out in the snow. Who would have thought that after all this, hypothermia would be what does him in? And we're out. Therapist time. Yup. This time around, Dr. K wants to navigate the fun topic of death and throw some more accusations my way.
How would you like to die? No, wait. Let me guess.
Okay.
You'd like to die having sex? It's academic.
What the
really.
fuck? For the game, as Kaufman calls it, our job is to look at 7 photos of random people and decide if they're sleeping or dead. I don't know how this would help someone in a therapeutic sense, but I love playing games, so I got to work.
It's just an exercise. There's no right answer. Actually, they were all dead.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's get back to it.
All right. I guess. After another lovely session, we return to Harry, still unconscious in the snow. Though, as the camera moves closer to him, we can hear footsteps approaching, until we watch as someone drags Harry off screen. A while later, Harry wakes up in a hospital, being pushed down the hall in a wheelchair by none other than good old Sybil Bennett. Of course, Sybil has some questions for Harry, but not before Harry can make himself look like even more of a psycho, frantically trying to tell Sybil about the bridge and Dahlia. Sybil doesn't understand, though. She says the bridge has been closed since the storm started, and Harry voluntarily swam. We're given yet another layer of mystery here. First, we can't trust Harry's history, and now we can't even trust the events happening around him. If there's no telling what we're experiencing is even real, how can we trust any of the people or places around us? Was Dahlia real, or was she a part of some manifestation Harry is having? How about Michelle, or even Sybil right now? Look, even if I'm not the biggest fan of it, I can't admit that Shattered Memories does do a good job fucking with your head in moments like these. Though with the continuous lack of answers, more and more pressure is being built upon the conclusion of this story. And at this point, I wasn't sure how the game was going to tie up all these loose ends neatly. It's also moments like these where I wish I could do a bit of a deep dive into the story, like I typically do in these videos. But as you can see, we don't have much to go off of. I hope I can convey to you the heavy themes of confusion and mystery this game radiates. I'm putting you in the exact headspace I was in during my playthrough. As we're being pushed further down the hall, Harry realizes that his clothes have changed. Sybil explains that he was soaked and this was all she could find, but these clothes tie into your psych profile, as I'm sure you could imagine. There's a few different outfits Harry can wake up wearing here. For example, he could wear anything from a high school varsity jacket all the way to a Walter White special. The one I woke up wearing was this leather jacket button-up combo, looking like I just lost a few rounds at the blackjack table. As best as I can tell, the outfit you end up wearing here is a pretty strong indication of the ultimate ending you'll receive, and you'll be wearing this for the majority of the game from here on out. If it wasn't enough of a mindfuck to learn about the bridge still being there, Sybil throws one more at us, leaving us with a cliffhanger. She starts telling Harry that they need to talk. Back when she was at the station, she pulled Harry's records and we'll never know. The other world creeps in and turns Sybil to ice, just like Dahlia before. And with the ice comes a chase, as we all know. But this time, Harry starts things off with some of the dumbest shit I've ever seen. Oh god, here we go again. Why am I in a wheelchair? Harry, just fucking stand up! Oh, wow. Why are we doing this? Why are we staying in the wheelchair? Oh, here comes the stairs. Fuck, maybe I need the wheelchair now. No, I'm totally good. Why did I stay in the wheelchair? Harry uses his totally capable legs to sprint out of Alchemilla and into a train station, I think. it doesn't matter. What does matter is that some of the raw shocks are starting to change again. A lot of them stay in their female form that I had before, but there's a few cubed and dismembered versions of them. I believe this signifies that I'm at a fork in my psych profile. Depending on my actions, I could go further down this weirdly sensual path that I'm on right now, or I could start exploring something new. And we'll have to see where this leads for me. There's not much else to say for this chase. Dahlia sends us a message towards the end, letting us know that she's alive and clearly has no memory of the bridge incident. The puzzle at the end of this one is pretty unremarkable too, believe it or not. We just have to call the Alchemilla radio station and tell them to play a certain song. This will crack open the door, freeing us from the other world and taking us back into Alchemilla somehow. Harry makes his way through the halls down to the main lobby, where he finds a woman that has driven her car through the wall and crashed into the front desk. We go and check on her and find out that she's a nurse here. She tells us that the hospital was short-staffed due to the blizzard and she was forced to come in. But I think the staff shortage is going to be the least of their problems now. Harry comforts her and tries to make sure she's okay. She's a little banged up, but otherwise she's alright. She does accept Harry's company on her way back to her place though. And as long as we're not getting behind any wheels, I guess I'll tag along. As we're making our way out of the building, Harry catches a glimpse of her hospital ID and sees that her name is Lisa Garland. Another returning character here. Lisa's got a pretty tragic backstory in previous Silent Hill titles, so I wonder if that'll follow her here too. While we're heading to Lisa's apartment, I can't help but think that she just crashed through a fucking hospital and we're just walking away from it. Christ, I mean, I know no one was inside, but there's gotta be a process to this kind of thing, right? Also, I still think it's crazy that Harry is doing all these side missions, walking people to their apartments, grabbing some drinks, all while Cheryl is still out there somewhere, as far as he knows. I think that's what bothered me the most throughout my playthrough. There's barely any sense of urgency from Harry once he gets distracted, which is so unlike his original portrayal in Silent Hill 1. We learn a bit about Lisa on our way through Silent Hill. She's an overworked nurse at Alchemilla, but no mentions of Kaufman or the Order, of course. For now, it seems like Lisa is just your average nurse. Harry tells Lisa about the crash and his daughter, but he also mentions how, just like us, he doesn't know if he can trust the things happening around him, if anything is truly real. Lisa tries to reassure him, telling him she's as real as they come. A bit of a clever nod there, but what I really wanted to point out here, now that we're getting Harry to open up a bit more, is that I do think this game wants you to be in the same shoes as Harry. By that I mean it's trying to confuse you, to put you in the same state of uncomfortable paranoia that Harry would be feeling, given his predicament. While that doesn't help unravel any of the strange events we've witnessed, it does make me feel a bit better knowing that you aren't really supposed to know or understand what's happening to Harry. When we reach Lisa's apartment, Harry rightfully tries to head back out, but Lisa tells him to sit so she can thank him properly. Doesn't take much to distract Harry from his missing daughter, so he takes a seat and waits for Lisa to do whatever she's gonna do. While we're waiting, I take a look around her place, only to see that Lisa is changing in full view of Harry.
During the heat wave.
Oh my god! This is one of several moments that will obviously have an effect on your psych profile if you engage in them, so I avert my eyes and wait for her to come back. When she does, she's immediately struck with a headache and asks us to grab her green pills from the bathroom.
Can you get me some pills? There's a bunch in the cabinet in the bathroom. Get me some green ones.
Yeah, I'll just fucking do that, I guess. I'm gonna raid your shit while I'm here, though. Fair warning. After sorting through her collection of pills, we bring them to her and she says she's gonna take a nap and to let ourselves out. Alright then, thanks Lisa. Now that we're done running Lisa's errands, we're put back with Dr. Kaufman. Which was kinda strange. Didn't really feel like a natural stopping point to be put back in therapy, but whatever. Session 5 is all about blame and guilt. Who we blame for our problems, what guilts keep us up at night, and the regrets of our past. Accompanying this is Kaufman's favorite game, as he says. And on the table in front of us are 4 figurines, ordered on a line from most to least guilty. Kaufman tells us the story behind these figures, a medieval-themed tale of arranged marriage, ending with the death of the bride. Kaufman wants us to arrange the figures in order of guilt for the death. We've got the bull, who delivered the killing blow to the bride, but is just an animal, of course. The groom, who the bride did not want to marry, but forced himself into the marriage anyway. The king, father of the bride, and the one responsible for allowing the marriage to happen in the first place. And finally, the bride herself, who would have still been alive had she not run away from the groom and into the bull's pasture. For me, I chose the king as the most guilty. Had he listened to his daughter, she would still be alive. The least guilty to me was the bull. It's just an animal. It doesn't know any better. I can't find much explaining the exact effects this has on the psych profile, or if this has any effect at all, but Kaufman will make a different comment depending on who you choose as the most guilty. This one is a quick session. Right after completing the game, we're back with Harry in Lisa's apartment. I couldn't help but find it strange for Lisa to not only knock out alone in her apartment with a man she's known for 10 minutes, but also trust him enough to leave and lock up her place by himself. Clearly, Lisa lacks some survival skills, but I guess we knew that from her parking job back at the hospital. We let ourselves out and continue our original goal of the house on Simmons Street. Since the roads are covered from the blizzard, we'll have to cut through Toluca Mall. But we barely even make it to the entrance before Lisa calls. Over the phone, she sounds distressed. She tells Harry that she had a nightmare and there was blood everywhere. And knowing Lisa's original story, that sounds uncomfortably familiar. So I turn around and head back to her place. Side note, how the fuck do these people keep getting my number? Sybil made a little sense because she had Harry's ID, but I don't remember swapping contacts with Lisa. Anyway, we rush back to her apartment, finding Lisa where we left her, but as we approach the couch, blood starts covering her face. An eerie reminder of her fate in Silent Hill 1, and another well-executed homage to the past. Harry crouches at her side, trying to check on her, but she's already gone. Seconds later, we hear the click of a gun being cocked. Standing between Harry and the exit to Lisa's apartment is Sybil, gun drawn and trained on Harry. Harry tries to explain that this wasn't him, but Sybil orders him to stand up and shut up. As she moves to close the gap between them, Sybil revisits that cliffhanger she left us on at the hospital.
Accident, shut the hell up. You've been feeding me bullshit all night. You bastard.
I didn't...
Shut up! I know you're not Harry Mason.
Yeah, that's a big one. Didn't see that one coming. So, if we're not Harry Mason, who are we? What are we doing parading around looking for a missing daughter that may or may not exist at this point? I guess there's a few different ways we can interpret this. Since we know that Harry's record shows some conflicting information about his existence, my theory about converging timelines could be true. Maybe this Harry is from Silent Hill 1, but lost his memory, and is causing this version of Silent Hill to repeat the same grim scenarios he'd faced before. Maybe the guy we're playing is a psychopath, killing people and going into a fugue state, where he thinks he's trying to find his missing daughter, somewhat similar to the bad ending of Origins. There's a lot you could theorize about with this new information, and I think this is where the story finally starts falling into place. But with Shattered Memory's fairly short runtime, it might be too little, too late. We'll have to see where this ends up. In the meantime, we've got to travel through the other world and back to Toluca Mall. It's only a few blocks away, so you'd think this would be a pretty short trip. But no, this was my personal hell. For some reason, this time around, they said, fuck the puzzle, let's put you in a giant-ass labyrinth that makes no sense and see how you do. I was stuck here for almost 15 minutes, just running from door to door, hoping that eventually I'd stumble upon the right one. You see, what makes this labyrinth challenging is that there's 50 fucking doors in this mall that you have to keep track of, while constantly being grabbed by the shocks, and entering one wrong door will lead you in a full circle, either back to the mall, or all the way back to Lisa's apartment. Where am I? Am I back at the start? Oh my god, I am. I've gone all the way back to the fucking beginning. Where am I? On my first attempt, I did end up taking my first death of the game, if you can even call it that, and had to start from the very beginning, which was So fun. As a slap in the face, upon respawning, the game tells me to use the GPS in my phone to help me find a way out, neglecting the fact that Harry is incapable of running with his phone out, and I will get absolutely dogpiled if I attempt to read a map during this, so back to brute forcing it I went. After taking another 12 laps around the mall, I finally found where I was supposed to be, and it looks like I lied earlier, because there's also a puzzle at the end of this. We all know that the puzzles have been simple so far, so this seemed like a well-deserved reward to me. If only I didn't have to go back out into the fucking maze to find the solution to this puzzle. There's no fucking way they want me to go all the way back to the goddamn center of this place to find the fucking colors of the bird. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fine, I'll do that. I can't catch a break here. Okay, so this puzzle wants you to take this gumball machine and arrange 4 gumballs in the same colors as the beak of the Toluca Mall toucan mascot. So I retrace my steps to the center of the mall, take a good look at Fruit Loops here, and head all the way back to the gumball machine. Now it's just a matter of lining up the gumballs in the correct order. Purple, pink, orange, yellow. Purple, pink, orange, yellow, purple, pink, orange, yellow, purple, pink, orange, yellow. Get off of me. Oh my god. Fucking launched him. But for the life of me, I couldn't seem to roll an orange gumball. Despite there being an orange gumball clearly inside the machine, it's impossible to get one out of the slot. And that's because you actually need a red. That is not fucking red. I truly believe this puzzle was made by someone who's colorblind, because that's the only rational explanation I can come up with. Or maybe I'm colorblind, and what a sad fucking way this would be to find that out. Once we get the correct order, the torment is over, and we're free to explore Toluca Mall. I use the word explore lightly, cause there's nothing here. We can pick up the occasional collectible or echo message, but there's nothing really too important throughout the entire mall in that regard. We catch up with the Shadow Child again, running away from us, as usual. Okay. Once we make it to the center of the mall, back with my old pal here, Michelle gives us a call, updating Harry and letting him know she's found her boyfriend and they're all good. Harry tries to ask her where she went back at the club, but the call breaks up before he can get an answer. Alright, we're gonna be here for a minute, or at least I was, so let me give you the rundown of our situation. In this section of the mall, there is a grand total of 3 shops you can enter. A toy store, where there's a locked safe that I assume we'll need to grab something from. A hair salon, containing 3 sinks that will obviously fog up these mirrors and give us a code to unlock a nearby door. And a pet shop, where a tragic discovery is made. What's that? Oh no! Close that. He mustn't see the world. Aside from that terrible loss, the pet shop has nothing else in it, and we'll need to find a code for the safe somewhere else. So that leaves us with the sinks. Unfortunately, it looks like the water bill hasn't been paid, cause no matter how much I turn the knob, faucet ain't running. So we're back to square one, and round 2 of my torment begins. I don't know what the deal with this mall is, but it really kicked my ass. I was stuck inside this place longer than I was in the labyrinth, and that's really saying something. With the sinks providing 0 solutions, I turned my attention towards the safe. Surely there's gotta be a key or something useful in there, so I start looking around the mall, calling numbers, reading posters, all in the effort of trying to find the damn code for this thing. Eventually, though, I just give up and start messing with the safe. I don't know, I thought maybe I could brute force it. And as it turns out, that's exactly what you're supposed to do. Yeah, you don't need a code for this thing. Once you hover over a specific number, the safe will click and you can just open it. That was all it was fucking for? A lizard? A lizard. Cool. I'll go fuck myself. Everything about this place was testing my patience, and I wasn't sure how much left I had in me. Well, with that solved, all we have left are the sinks. And I think I almost went insane during this one. I traveled back and forth across the entire building, looking for a water release, a lever, something, anything to get these sinks working, and there was nothing. Oh my god, I'm gonna be fucking locked in this mall forever. With this dinky-ass music just playing on repeat. After spending 15 minutes alone on these sinks, I couldn't take it anymore. I decided to just look it up, and my world was shattered. What? There's a lever on the right side? Where? Where's the... It says turn on the water with the lever. Oh. I just want to throw in that one of the possible variations of the mall can lead you to an entirely different store instead of the hair salon. And God, do I wish I would have gotten that. Anyway, with the code in hand, we can finally start exiting the mall. There's just one more pit stop to make, and that's the mall theater. The only thing to look at in here is what's playing on the screen. There's a couple different variations of what you can see, but I feel like I got the most ominous one. My God. Holy shit, I'm wigging out. And with that, we've concluded our time in Toluca Mall. Thank God. On our way out, Dahlia gets back on her freak shit, and then we have a short walk through town. I believe we've finally made it to Simmons Street, after what felt like half the game. And what a journey it's been, and hopefully we'll get some answers when we find our house. First, we've got to cut through the Green Lion, not antique store, but pawn shop. And this place can look totally different depending on your profile, but for me, it looked like a pretty standard pawn shop. We solve a simple puzzle to grab a key to the second floor, and judging by the door labeled Mason, I think we've arrived at Harry's place.
Sweetie, is that you? You'd been gone for so long, I started to worry. Sweetie? Who the hell are you? Harry?
How do you know me? Where's Cheryl?
Still at the lighthouse, maybe.
Lighthouse?
What are you doing here, Harry?
Looking for Cheryl. Isn't this my house? Who are you?
We're soulmates, you and I. For richer, for poorer. In sickness and in health.
You're my wife?
With another major reveal, this older Dahlia appears to be Harry's wife, the one he'd forgotten about until Michelle pointed out his ring all the way back at the club. Dahlia calling Cheryl sweetie also implies that they're related, so it looks like Dahlia is still Cheryl's mother in this reimagining. Putting these pieces together lends to the idea that Cheryl wasn't adopted in this version of events. Harry is her real father and is married to Dahlia Gillespie in what seems to be a caring and stable home, for the most part. We know Cheryl still had a rough time at school, and maybe Dahlia's reckless personality led to some tension between them, but Harry still seems to care a lot for her. Thinking all the way back to the first few seconds of the game, Cheryl even seems to have had a happy childhood, with Harry taking her to amusement parks and whatnot. Clearly, something had to go wrong along the way, though. Otherwise, Harry, or whoever he is, wouldn't be stuck inside Silent Hill. The only thing we know is that the person we're playing as isn't Harry Mason, according to Sybil. But even that's conflicting, given that Dahlia has known him as Harry for years. There's still so many questions that haven't been answered, and that's starting to get really concerning, because this is the final Otherworld section of the game. We're getting to the point where things need to start wrapping up, and we've just been given a whole new angle to look at things from. It's safe to say that at this point, my faith in the game's story was shaky, and that's being generous. We're 4 hours in with one more to go, and I could still barely tell you what was happening. It wasn't a great feeling for me, and my thoughts towards this title were starting to sour. At least this final Otherworld gives me some substance to speak on. It's definitely the most interesting of them all, and it starts with a long descent down a case of stairs. The Green Lion is turned into a perplexing wall of concrete, lined with several staircases. As we reach the end of these stairs, our platform is cut off. Below us is a deep void, and Harry, taking a page from the Sunderland book, decides to hop on down. But we get to the point where we're killed by cult members. Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, that makes sense. Always the most rational decisions made in these games, regarding endless holes. As Harry plummets down this hole, flashes of his life play out in front of him, in the form of pictures hung on the wall. We can see Harry and Cheryl together, enjoying a happy moment, Cheryl by herself, with that familiar image of her on a swing set, and we keep passing this frozen bedroom, which might be Cheryl's childhood room. Eventually, we see Cheryl herself, in her frozen child form. She falls with us for a few seconds, seemingly waving at Harry before leaving us behind. Harry continues to fall deeper into the pit until we hit the icy floor. Harry stands, disoriented, and takes a look at his surroundings. There's a black shroud that prevents us from seeing more than a few feet ahead. Just behind us sits a lone chair, and in front is a hanging ceiling light. Taking a look at the light, we notice that it leads to another, forming a trail that will eventually lead us to an echo. Approaching this echo doesn't give us a message, but instead teleports us to a hallway, very similar to the one we saw in Harry's Simmons Street home. In the background, we can hear what sounds like faint arguing, but that stops once we head through a door. This door will take us into a living room, which has 3 more doors to enter, and we're starting to get a taste for what this final otherworld is offering. Yeah, so this is the meat of this section. We're put into a chase where we have to solve a maze puzzle, running from door to door until we find the right combination that'll let us out. We have to find the correct door in each room in order to progress, as entering the wrong door will get you stuck in a loop. I don't think there's any tells for which door you're meant to enter, so it's really just another brute force situation. After a while of running through doors, I finally get the sequence right and free myself from the maze. This leads into more door opening, but this time it's more of a PT situation. This series of doors will first take us to that bedroom we saw earlier while falling. As we enter and exit the room repeatedly, the bedroom flips until it's completely upside down. Then we enter the living room again, and watch as the TV turns on and plays the opening VHS tape. Finally, at the end of a long hall, we have another void to jump into, and as we fall towards a deeper layer of hell, we're given our first real clue as to the conclusion of this story. As we fall, a series of stills from the VHS tape are lined up in front of us, playing themselves like a slideshow. As per usual, it shows a young Cheryl getting into the car with Harry to head off to that amusement park. But as Cheryl gets in, stills of Harry lying in the snow next to his totaled car are interjected. In that moment, it seemed pretty clear to me what the game was implying, and I began to believe my car crash theory was correct. I believed that Harry did die in that wreck, and possibly even Cheryl too, given that her only appearance is in the form of echoes and shadows. That does bring some questions though, like if Harry is dead, how are we playing from his point of view? My original idea was that this whole game was playing out in Harry's mind as he was dying, kind of like a life flashing before his eyes type scenario. It could also be that he's trapped in some sort of purgatory. That feels very Silent Hill to me and would explain the otherworld and monsters and everything of that sort, but Cheryl really throws a wrench in everything for me. If she died in that car accident too, why can we see her all grown up? At first I thought maybe this was just how Harry would picture her, if he got to see her grow up. But it would be kind of weird to envision your daughter being relentlessly bullied in school, so maybe not that one. Truthfully, I had no idea how Cheryl fit into this whole thing, but I was very glad to have finally gotten some level of clarification on the story here. At the bottom of this second pit, we're put into another large room. But this time, the center is filled by that frozen statue of older Dahlia. There's a short puzzle to get to her, but once we do, we're teleported, again, back to the door maze. I had no idea how to actually solve this maze puzzle, or even if there was a solution to it, but by the power of dumb luck, I managed to stumble into the correct door, and we are finally done with this otherworld trip. The final door of the maze leads into Cheryl's childhood bedroom. Harry looks around for a moment, hopeful that he'll find his daughter waiting for him, but the room is empty. He takes a look at some photos she's framed and hung in her room, memories of their time together. As the realization sinks in, Harry collapses in her bed, holding a photo of the two together. He'd completed his journey to find his old address, to reach Cheryl's room through all the twists and turns thrown at him along the way. This is Cheryl's bedroom, but she's not in it. With that, we're faced with our next therapy session, where Dr. Kaufman discusses his clearly troubled history with marriage.
Marriage worked a lot better when we didn't live so long. We have phrases like the honeymoon is over to remind us how quickly marriages sour. Come on, You think marriage can really last?
I don't think you're a very good
Should a
therapist.
couple-
For our game, Kaufman simply wants us to pair these photos of people into couples. And there's a few different ways you can go about this. You can sort them by the scenery in the background, the clothes they're wearing, their expressions, or even just at random. I went with their clothing. I'm not sure why, just the first thing that came to mind. But Kaufman doesn't really make any comments on this, and the session ends pretty abruptly. We pick up where we left off with Harry, still in Cheryl's bed. Harry is woken up by someone calling out for him, and as the camera pans towards this person, we see that it's Michelle. Not sure how she found Harry, or why she just let herself into Harry's house, but she's here. Harry jumps up and decides in a last-ditch effort to head to one final place that Cheryl might be hiding. Earlier, that older Dahlia mentioned a lighthouse, and that's exactly where Harry wants to check. Now, Michelle says that the lighthouse has been abandoned for years, but still agrees to drive Harry to the docks, with her boyfriend in the car. Well, I'm sure this is going to be a fun road trip.
Christ, Michelle, I've been trying to do this for months, but you don't want to hear it.
Y'all, I don't...
If a witness, maybe you'll listen.
Oh, wow. I didn't mean to join this episode of Maury. I don't think I've ever wanted to eject myself from a car window more in my life than right now. Once the domestic dispute is settled, both John and Michelle exit the car and run off into the snow, just leaving Harry in the back seat. Jesus Christ, people. We climb up to the front and let ourselves out, having to walk the rest of the way to the lighthouse. Harry decides the best way to get there is to travel through the sewer, for whatever reason. But as we jog through these concrete tunnels, we get a couple interesting messages. The first is from Dahlia. It's more lore between Harry and her that we can't quite make sense of, but the most important message is a phone call that Harry receives near the exit. For the first time since the beginning of the game, Cheryl reaches out to Harry directly, calling him to tell him not to come to the lighthouse, that it's dangerous. Given that we've been looking for her for 5 hours now, we're gonna go ahead and disregard that one. Climbing out of the sewers, we find ourselves on the opposite shore of Toluca Lake, directly across from the lighthouse. We're going to the lighthouse, right? Holy shit, we ain't making it. Well, looks like it's gonna take a bit of work to get over there, so I take a second to enjoy the sights of this lakeside town. There's actually a decent amount of collectibles here, but other than that, not much else to see. While viewing the map to figure out how the fuck I was gonna part the sea, I couldn't help but notice the boldly labeled Lakeside Amusement Park, which got me pretty excited. I really loved the Lakeside Park sections of Silent Hill 3, and it's a location that I wish we could have gotten to explore in more entries of the series. So I start charting a path down to the park, and to get there, we'll have to pass through a place called Annie's Bar. Harry enters the bar and finds Michelle enjoying a slice of post-breakup cheesecake. She goes on about John and their relationship for a sec. Still, none of Harry's business, but eventually tells us that we can find a boat at the amusement park. Well, it's a good thing I was already headed there. Thank you, Michelle. As Harry starts to leave the bar, Michelle turns to ask him if he's sure he wants to do this. He might not like the answers he finds at the lighthouse. And to that I say, what fucking question was he asking in the first place? Harry has been the most complacent man I've ever seen throughout this entire story. I don't think he's questioned a goddamn thing that's happened to him, so I think he's gonna be just fine with this one. As Harry leaves, we cut to our final therapy session. It's time to say goodbye to Dr. Kaufman, and boy does he go out with a bang. This session is all about Kaufman's favorite subject.
That's what you're thinking. Aren't all psychiatrists supposed to be obsessed with sex?
I've never thought that before in my life.
It's not us. It's you.
I think you're a freak.
Good. Of course, the constant partner of sex, the other side of the same coin, is death.
Oh. Okay. I guess.
Sex.
You're the expert.
Death. To deny sex is to deny death itself.
I think you're just saying fucking words. I'm not gonna lie to you. Now that we're done being harassed, we can head to the amusement park. So we get there, and it's a little underwhelming. What a shitty arcade, by the way. Sorry, I was just looking at the surroundings. The arcade is 3 fucking slot machines. It's good to get the kids hooked early. Yeah, it turns out this place is just another disappointment. We spend about 5 minutes in the Tunnel of Love chasing the Shadow Girl, and then we're done with the place. You know what? That's on me for seeking a little joy and whimsy. God forbid. We make it to the docks and find our boat, just as Michelle foretold. And, well, you can't have a captain without a crew, so Dahlia hitches a ride with us. She's been chilling in here for God knows how long, tries to coerce Harry into some wine, but Harry's all business tonight. Tells her about the lighthouse and Cheryl, and Dahlia starts the boat. She says it'll take about 20 minutes before they arrive, and I guess that's just enough time to forget about Cheryl once again, because Dahlia and Harry start hooking up. I can't make this shit up. You know, just before they started tongue wrestling, I thought Harry was about to fully open up for the first time. He actually started asking questions, telling Dahlia how bizarre this whole situation is, even getting angry about not finding Cheryl, all to be blown off in one sentence from Dahlia. It felt like every opportunity for Harry to become a real character with thoughts and emotions was just thrown out the window. I didn't get it at the time, and I was just baffled by this choice. After they've concluded, Harry wakes up to find himself lying next to a frozen older Dahlia. And that can only mean one thing. Guess we aren't quite done with the Otherworld yet. Yeah, I know, I said the last Otherworld was the final one, but this chase is so short, I barely count it. Anyway, Harry gets up and gets dressed in what I can only describe as Floridian retirement home chic. If you've got a keen eye, you might recall this being the outfit Harry wore in the tape we keep revisiting. These are the final moments of the game, so everything's gotta come full circle. Harry steps outside to gauge his surroundings. He didn't quite make it to the lighthouse, but the ocean has frozen enough to walk on, so I guess we'll leg it. On our way, we get a few messages, and these actually help clear up a lot of the story all on their own. First, Dahlia gives us a call, telling Harry to turn back, that it's not safe, and to do it for our daughter's sake. So that seems to confirm that Cheryl is Harry and Dahlia's daughter, something we theorized about earlier. Next, Sybil sends Harry a text, saying, "This your little Cheryl?" with a picture of a grown-up Cheryl's mugshot attached. Now we know what Sybil found at the station, what she wanted to question Harry about, and maybe why she doesn't believe Harry Mason to be who he says he is. It might be a stretch, but this could also confirm that grown-up Cheryl is real. Her being inside the police database would imply that the pictures we found of her aren't just the effects of Silent Hill trickery. It also gives more proof of her troubled upbringing, though we still aren't sure why her childhood was so shaky. After receiving that message from Sybil, the raw shocks start pouring in, quickly surrounding Harry and piling up on him. There's no way to escape them here. Eventually, Harry will succumb to their numbers and collapse on the ice. That is, until the lighthouse beams down onto us, freezing the shocks and freeing Harry from their grasp. This also causes the ice below us to shatter, and as we fall into the ocean, we're forced to swim the rest of the way. As we swim, statues of events in Harry's life are put on display underneath us. They can be hard to make out through the ripples of the waves, but they seem to be putting more emphasis on the car crash. At this point, I was fully convinced that Harry died in a wreck, but that still doesn't answer all of my questions, especially the ones regarding Cheryl. The lighthouse is in sight now, but before we can reach it, Harry just drowns. Like, you know what I mean? Was it me? Am I drowning? What the okay. And we've drowned. Thankfully, we're pulled ashore by Sybil, who has been waiting here for him. Harry wakes up and thanks her by taking her fucking gun and threatening her.
You can't talk me out of this!
I'm not here to stop you. I pulled your file at the station. I told you that, right? If you're telling the truth, this doesn't make sense. But I think you are telling the truth. I believe you think you're Harry Mason. Hell, I believe you are Harry Mason. But Harry Mason was killed in a car crash 18 years ago.
Well, as we've already put together, Harry is certainly dead. With that confirmation, we can start making sense of some of the events and interactions we've had throughout the story. And we'll go through those a bit later, but for now, I want to turn my attention towards Cheryl. We have an exact time of death for Harry, 18 years ago. Assuming Cheryl was 7 when he died, that would explain why her early life and teenage years were so troubled. She had to navigate some of her most vulnerable moments while missing a parent. This clearly drove Cheryl to the edge, led to the bullying and the arrest, and some other things that we'll discuss soon. But the point is, we know why Cheryl acted the way she did now. There's still a few more questions regarding both Harry and Cheryl, but just as Sybil says, the lighthouse might have some answers. Now, this doesn't look like any lighthouse I've ever seen, but fuck it, we're already dead. What's the worst that could happen? As we approach the door, a sign tells us that this is the Lighthouse Clinic, belonging to M. Kaufman. We can explore the lobby of Kaufman's clinic a bit, and this is where I had one final theory. I thought the story would end on a loop, where Harry is forced to play out these events over and over again, leading him right back to Kaufman's office for eternity. It plays on my purgatory theory from earlier. But when I opened Kaufman's office door, our perspective changed. Suddenly, we're no longer playing as Harry. We're sitting back in that familiar chair, listening to Kaufman's analysis of us. But this time, he gets a little more specific about our situation, and it all clicks. We haven't been Harry Mason at any point during this story. This whole time, we've been playing as Cheryl. Let me explain. We haven't actually been running around Silent Hill as Cheryl. Rather, this has all been in her head. Through Cheryl's time spent with Dr. Kaufman in this very office, we've been gradually stripping away this armor Cheryl has built in her mind to shield herself from the tragic reality of her father's passing. And now that we've gathered this final piece of the puzzle that is Shattered Memory's story, we can put together a coherent narrative for the first time since we pressed play. So let's take everything we know and put an end to this trauma. First off, we of course learned from Sybil that Harry died when Cheryl was 7 years old. Now, according to Kaufman's final monologue, this led Cheryl to spend the rest of her life, up until this very moment, crafting a story around Harry, making him out to be her hero, something larger than life. But this just wasn't true. No matter how badly Cheryl wanted to connect with her father, to hold on to him through her worst moments, she couldn't. He was just a man that she never really got the chance to know. Throughout her teenage years and early adulthood, Cheryl lashed out at everyone around her, leading to a life of crime and violence. She blamed and pushed away her own mother, Dahlia, who raised her for those 18 years without Harry, and who was going through the exact same pain as Cheryl herself, but that didn't matter to her. Instead of turning to those that cared for her, Cheryl spent most of her time inebriated, or seeking intimate distractions, or even fantasizing about Harry and what her life could have been. But at the age of 25, Cheryl took the first steps towards a healthy recovery from her traumatic past. She traveled back to Silent Hill, the town that Harry's accident occurred, and sought the help of a therapist, Dr. Michael Kaufman. Together, they broke down every wall that Cheryl had built to protect herself from the truth, and right now, Cheryl has to decide whether she'll accept her father's death or continue breathing life into this fantasy. As Cheryl stares down this ultimatum, our projection of Harry Mason walks into the room, leading us to the end of Cheryl's story. The ending you'll receive depends on your psych profile and how many points you acquired in several different categories, ultimately leading to 3 unique endings. In addition to this, you'll also receive one of 5 different epilogues that will drastically change the context of the entire story. And like always, we'll talk about each and every ending and how you get them, but first, I want to dive back into the story for a second, because this is the first time we've really gotten to sink our teeth into something. After this major reveal, we can start to break down much of what we've experienced in the game up to this point. For example, the echo messages and photos that once seemed either completely random or even out of place are now important pieces of Cheryl's history. Examining these messages under this new light, we can learn more about Cheryl's earliest memories of her father, like how Harry played her favorite song while she was injured in the hospital. Or we can revisit some of her darkest moments, when she was drugged by her peers out in the woods. There's a lot of context you can gather about Cheryl and her experiences through these collectibles, and that extends to the items you can find throughout Silent Hill. I barely even brought this up because they had no meaning to me before this reveal, but the items you grab in the town all belong to Cheryl, each representing a memory she's holding on to. One that stood out to me was a bloody knife back in Toluca Mall. This knife is what Cheryl used to stab a security guard as she was exploring the abandoned mall. These items and messages appeared small at the time. They seemed to have no real relevance to our story, but Now they're integral pieces of history for the true protagonist of Shattered Memories. We can even look at the gameplay elements, like the raw shocks, which are now an obvious attempt by Cheryl's psyche to continue suppressing her reality. These monsters trying to stop Harry from reaching the lighthouse are really just physical manifestations of Cheryl's reluctance to let go of this fantasy she's been kindling. A clever detail that I didn't notice until after the fact is that the shocks never hurt Harry. Yeah, they jump on him and slow him down, but even when they overpower Harry and pull him to the ground, they just stand by, watching or even caressing Harry as he loses consciousness. To me, this represents Cheryl nurturing the fantasy. She doesn't want to imagine Harry getting killed again, but she also doesn't want him to finish this journey and potentially lose him forever. Looking back on all of this, I've got to say, I find a lot of it really impressive. The game managed to pull off what I thought would be impossible, to tie this mess of a story into something not only cohesive, but enjoyable. I don't want to get too deep into my thoughts now. We still have a whole dedicated section for that kind of thing, but just know that at this point, my attitude towards the game had shifted. Alright, with that said, let's get back into the moment. We left off on that ultimatum. Cheryl has to decide whether she'll confront her pain once and for all, or continue living inside her own head. It's about time we talk about the 3 interactions Cheryl can have with this conjuring of Harry Mason she's created. We'll start with the best outcome and move to the worst, beginning with the conversation that I received in my ending, Cheryl accepting her father's death and moving on with her life. So each ending starts the same. Kaufman finishes his plea for Cheryl to move on, and our fictional Harry moves towards his daughter. In this ending, they only share a few words. Cheryl expresses fear of letting go of Harry, saying, "You've been with me for so long." Harry reassures her by stating, "I always will be." And then, much like many of the characters we've met on our journey, he freezes over, signifying the end of Cheryl's fantasy. We watch as Cheryl exits the clinic to find Dahlia waiting for her. The two embrace, reconnecting for the first time since Harry's death, and the story ends. Well, kinda. Like I mentioned, we still have the epilogues that play after these 3 conversations, but to make things easier, I'm gonna give them their own spotlight here in a few. For now, let's keep discussing this ending for a bit. Obviously, this is the best outcome for Cheryl and the people around her. Cheryl reconnecting with Dahlia at the end is already a huge step towards getting her life back on track. And although it's bittersweet to let Harry go, the lesson she's learned from having his ghost around will help her navigate her way towards a better life. All in all, this wraps things up very nicely, and no surprise, is my favorite of the 3. In our next ending, Cheryl also moves on from Harry, but not in a positive manner. Instead of trying to keep Harry's memory alive, she destroys it by looking for someone to blame for Harry's death. As Harry approaches Cheryl in this ending, she stands, questioning why he had to die and saying it wasn't her fault. Someone has to take the blame for it. Overcome with anger, Cheryl even rejects Harry's final attempt to comfort her, pushing away his hand as he reaches out. In response, Harry backs away and tells Cheryl to forget him before freezing once again. Unlike the previous ending, however, Harry shatters. Pieces of his body crumble to the floor as Cheryl hangs her head and weeps. Although this is clearly not the best outcome for Cheryl, as now she's even more desperate to blame someone than before, at the very least, she has left her fantasies behind. This might lead her to deal with her loss in a healthier manner down the road, but for now, that doesn't seem likely. Cheryl will probably continue to blame Dahlia, maybe even harsher than before, and I don't see their relationship surviving this ending. Since Dahlia was the last positive connection Cheryl had in her life, I believe this ending leads to all of her bridges being burned and Cheryl having to start all over again. This final conversation is probably the most twisted of them all, as we see Cheryl not only hold on to her fantasy, but sink even deeper into it. Instead of Harry approaching Cheryl, this time around, Cheryl calls out for Harry. She tells Harry that he's her hero, that he's all she has, and most shockingly, that the man who died wasn't even her father. Cheryl is telling Harry that she sees this manifestation of him, the one that she created, as more real than her actual father was. Harry himself looks almost shocked by this, saying, "I'm not even a ghost," before Cheryl pulls him in to her embrace. This is clearly the most destructive and devastating ending for Cheryl. There doesn't seem to be any hope for an escape from her delusions here, and she'll likely spend years, if not the rest of her life, chasing after someone that never even existed at this point. I really liked the detail of Harry being shocked by this conclusion too. Not even her own mind can comprehend what she's choosing. And if these manifestations have any real-world properties to them, this will mean that Harry will spend eternity in this twisted version of Silent Hill. Alright, now we'll move on to the epilogues, which take the form of VHS tapes recorded by a young Cheryl. In these tapes, we'll learn key details about Harry's personality and Cheryl's upbringing, which, as I mentioned, will completely change the tone and context of the story as we know it. Which tape you'll receive is still dependent on your psych profile, and a few other factors. In the effort of saving you some time, I'll try to be as concise as possible with these tapes. We've got 5 to get through, and we've already spent quite a bit on these conversations. With that said, I'll continue going through these in order of best to worst. So let's start with Tape 1, Love Lost. So this is by far the best epilogue you can receive, and it just so happens that this was the ending I got for my playthrough. To reach this ending, you'll generally need to be a good person throughout the story, giving friendly answers to Kaufman, not focusing on drugs or risque distractions, that kind of thing. The Love Lost ending looks like an extended version of the tape we've seen multiple times now. It starts off with that familiar image of Cheryl and Harry heading to the lakeside amusement park. The extension starts when they arrive back home. Cheryl films Harry and Dahlia speaking while Harry packs a car. They seem to be a bit cold with each other. Harry notices the camera and tells Cheryl not to film this, and that just because he and Dahlia don't love each other anymore, that doesn't mean that they don't love her. With this, Cheryl puts the camera down and the tape ends. Now, it's unclear whether Harry's accident occurs right after this interaction, but it's very clear that Dahlia is sending Harry away while Cheryl is made to stay behind. This gives us context on why Cheryl would hold resentment towards Dahlia. In her mind, Dahlia is responsible for her father's death. And with the accident happening shortly after this, I wouldn't be surprised if Dahlia blames herself, too. At the very least, the split seems amicable. Dahlia even appears to still care about Harry, telling him to be careful on his drive. I'm glad that Harry gave his daughter one last good day, though, and with the proof of Cheryl rewatching the tape over and over again, it's something that'll stick with her forever. Tape 2 is quite the nosedive from our previous tape, and believe it or not, it only gets worse from here. This tape is called Sleaze and Sirens. You receive it by focusing on sexual imagery, or answering yes to a few of Kaufman's fucking weird questions. I put this one as the second best ending, only because Cheryl doesn't see this one firsthand. Unlike the rest of the tapes, Harry is recording this time. He sets up the camera facing a cliché motel-esque bed and invites someone off-screen to join him on said bed. This is when Michelle makes an appearance on the tape, introducing herself and cuddling up next to Harry. Then, we watch as Lisa Garland does the same. Finally, Harry introduces himself as a famous author, which is a detail we didn't know till now. Michelle asks if they can have a dedication in his next book, but Harry says that dedications are reserved for his wife and daughter before bursting out in laughter. The three then lay back in the bed, and the tape ends here. So this epilogue makes Harry out to be a cheater, which the consequences of are felt at home, I'm sure. Harry clearly doesn't care much about his family here, destroying his marriage with Dahlia and straining his relationship with his daughter. Now, like I said, Cheryl never saw this happening firsthand, but I can only imagine what it was like to find this tape after thinking your father died a hero. Tape 3 gives us the drunk dad ending, which, surprise, surprise, makes Harry an alcoholic. You, of course, get this ending by paying special attention to alcohol or drugs throughout the story, and that's about it for this one. This tape is very short. It's from Cheryl's perspective once again, filming her father from the porch as he comes home late at night, bottle in hand. Harry stumbles towards Cheryl, already belligerent and aggressive. He doesn't even make it up the stairs before falling over right in front of his daughter. Harry demands Cheryl to bring him another drink, and when she doesn't budge, Harry says, "No wonder I drink with a family like this." The tape ends there. I think it goes without saying that Harry's addiction in this ending is ruining his family. I can only imagine the fear Cheryl and Dahlia must have for Harry, especially considering that the night is only just starting for him. I will say, with this ending applied to the overall story of the game, it makes Cheryl's fantasy of a loving and heroic father that much more devastating. To take this mess of a man and turn him into the father Cheryl wanted him to be shows just how badly she wanted Harry to care for her. Tape 4 is the most traumatic by far, especially for a young Cheryl. This ending, called Wicked and Weak, sees Dahlia return to a more villainous role, becoming abusive towards Harry. It can be achieved by being standoffish during therapy or with characters in the story, or by hinting at Kaufman that you're more of a loner. The tape sees Cheryl quietly rounding a corner to find Dahlia berating Harry for his work as an author. Dahlia claims that Harry isn't bringing in enough money and goes on to both verbally and physically abuse him. As she continues degrading Harry, calling him a waste of space and insulting his life's work, she continually slaps Harry until he's brought to his knees. One final blow drops Harry's glasses to the floor, and when he retrieves them, he looks up to find Cheryl recording the entire incident. Harry gives her a look of shame and embarrassment, and the tape ends. Again, when applying this ending to the context of the overall story, it just makes Cheryl's situation so much more tragic. You can tell through Cheryl's fantasy that she desperately wanted Harry to stand up for himself, making him more headstrong and protective of her. She also wanted Dahlia to be a caring mother, warping her vile and abusive personality to something a bit softer. And while it doesn't show anything of the sort, you gotta wonder what Dahlia was willing to do to Cheryl if she was able to hurt Harry like that. And that's why I believe this ending to be the worst of them all. Finally, we have Tape 5, which is our usual UFO Easter egg ending, so we'll run through this one real quick. To get this ending, you'll need to have completed the game at least once. During your next playthrough, 13 UFOs will spawn around Silent Hill, and if you take a picture of each one using Harry's phone, you'll unlock this bonus ending. This cinematic is drawn in a cartoon or comic book style and sees Cheryl telling Kaufman that she believes Harry was abducted by aliens. Kaufman says that's ridiculous, and that the cult stuff she was talking about made more sense. But Cheryl doubles down and says that this whole town is actually a spaceship. The session is then briefly interrupted by James Sunderland opening the door. Kaufman tells him it's the wrong day for his session, and explains to Cheryl that James is in couples therapy, but he hasn't seen James's wife in a while. Crazy. Anyway, Cheryl turns into the Sheba from the Silent Hill 2 bonus ending, calls her mother a bitch, and that's the end. I think this is definitely my favorite UFO ending of all the Western games, maybe even all Silent Hill titles in general. It's very funny, the side mission to get it works well, and I really appreciate the merry joke. We've now seen every concluding conversation held between Cheryl and her manifestation of Harry Mason, along with every VHS tape that provides crucial context surrounding Harry, not only as a person, but specifically as a father. With everything drawing to a close here, it's safe to say that Shattered Memories is the most unique take on the Silent Hill formula that the series has ever seen. Gone are the cults and powers that give the town its mystical properties, replaced by a deep dive into the human condition with a surprisingly down-to-earth story that revolves around the psychological trauma from losing a parent. Shattered Memories holds the title as the most well-received entry of the 4 Western Silent Hill games, and while I personally was conflicted with my thoughts on this title for most of my experience, I do think Shattered Memories has quite a bit going for it. Like always, we're going to talk about what I think Shattered Memories does well, and what it struggles with. We'll start with the problems to leave things on a positive note for you all, and right off the bat, I want to tackle the most obvious issue holding Shattered Memories back. While I think it's good to shake things up, experiment with different elements, especially in a long-running series like Silent Hill, I feel that it's also important to respect the foundation that these games were built on. Shattered Memories does a lot in the way of exploring new ideas and mechanics, so much so that it loses a lot of the essential components of a Silent Hill experience. There's a lot of staples in the atmosphere and makeup of previous games that are either significantly toned down or just completely missing in Shattered Memories. Obviously, there's the lack of combat and resource management, but I'm talking the smaller details. For a quick example, the fact that there's almost no fog in the game, despite that being a major factor of every other Silent Hill. This can extend to the characters themselves. They take the name and appearances of familiar characters from Silent Hill 1, but other than that, there's almost no correlation. The only part of this game that held on to its Silent Hill identity, I feel, was the story. The deep psychological aspects pay homage to the gripping stories of earlier entries, but even then, it sometimes leans a little too much on psychological and not enough on survival horror. During my time spent with this game, I didn't feel like I was having a true Silent Hill experience. Rather, it felt like the Silent Hill title was thrown on to sell more copies. Comparing this game to Silent Hill 1 is almost completely useless outside of a few references. I think it would have been less distracting had this not been a Silent Hill game. I've actually had this same opinion before in my very first Silent Hill video on Downpour, but that goes tenfold here. Where Downpour maybe could have benefited from being its own independent story, Shattered Memories actively suffers from trying to hold on to the Silent Hill title. This one kinda goes hand in hand with the loss of the Silent Hill identity, but because there's so much to go over, I wanted to make this its own point and really hone in on some of the details that were missing in this game. Now, I've already mentioned the combat and resources multiple times, so I don't feel the need to go over those in depth, but there was certainly an expectation when diving into a Silent Hill game that was not met here. I do want to touch on the enemies though. The raw shocks were very bland, to say the least, and it's so disappointing. You take a series known for its creature design and completely strip that away, leaving a single enemy that appears only under certain circumstances, and not only that, but that one enemy is boring. It's a really unique idea to have the monsters warp themselves based on your actions, but the design changes were so underwhelming that a lot of them are almost unnoticeable. You would think that with a series that ties its design so deeply into the psychological aspects of the story, that a game focusing almost solely on a character's psyche would nail the creature design, but that just wasn't the case. The puzzles were also terrible across the board. Most were laughably simple, and a few annoying or tedious, but none were memorable. All around, the gameplay is pretty uninspired. No combat with a focus on bad puzzles, long stretches of nothing but walking, and no immediate threats for 80% of the game puts zero tension on the player. My next point might be a bit confusing, because overall I did really enjoy the story, but I absolutely did not like how the story was told. It's no secret that I spent 90% of the game having no clue what was happening. It seemed like every time a major plot point would be revealed, it would only lead to endless questions that never got answered until the very final moment of the story. Combined with the lackluster environments and collectibles that have no weight on the story for first-time players, and you've got a narrative that strings you along for 5 hours straight. If you take a look back at previous Silent Hill games, there's tons of breadcrumbs scattered across those stories that, even on a first-ever playthrough, you'd still have a pretty good chance of noticing something dark is on the horizon. On an initial playthrough of Shattered Memories, there's almost nothing to hint towards Cheryl's reveal. The echo messages appear to be nothing more than light world building, and almost all of the collectibles provide little substance, leaving you with nothing but overly dramatic cliffhangers that still don't do much in the way of revealing new information. Maybe this is what the writers intended, for you to feel just as lost as the manifestation of Harry is, but I don't think that makes for a great way to convey a story. At least, not for me. Lastly, I want to talk about the bleak environments throughout the whole game. Now, I understand that with this whole story taking place inside Cheryl's mind, that the world should have an almost dreamlike quality to it, where you can't quite make out the finer details. But there was so much of this game that felt like you were playing inside a cardboard box. The buildings you enter are empty, the small landscapes you explore are barren. Almost everything about the design of this game felt unfinished. If there was already nothing to do in the way of fighting, gathering resources, or solving puzzles, at the very least, they could have given some eye candy to sink you into the horror mood. I don't know, maybe it's just me. I could see how these bleak environments might unsettle some, triggering somewhat of an uncanny response, but they just didn't do it for me. And at some points, I got so bored that I just breezed through areas to keep the story moving. Now, moving on to the positives, I want to start with the most standout feature Shattered Memories has to offer, the psych profile. There are so many different areas of the game that this profile affects, and with my love of Choices Matter games, it's a no-brainer that I would enjoy this. It's crazy to me that this game came out 16 years ago, because this system alone makes it feel so ahead of its time. I could make a whole video dissecting every small detail that your psych profile can change, and it really does feel at times that this game is tailoring towards your choices. Albeit, there are some obvious signs that interacting with certain elements will change your profile, but for the most part, if you stay true to yourself, you'll have a unique experience. The therapy intermissions are a great way to transition the story, and the small interactable elements of each session are fun and engaging. Also, bonus points to the credit sequence. After you finish a playthrough, the game will give you your own unique psychological analysis that may or may not be indicative of the kind of person you are, but it's still fun to read, nonetheless. Overall, I think this system was implemented pretty well, and I really enjoyed seeing the effects my decisions had on the world around me. Now, I know I touched on disliking how the story was conveyed, but as far as the message the story has to tell, I think it's really great. Shattered Memories does something that not a lot of other Silent Hill games do, and that's tell a very down-to-earth, relatable story. The idea of losing someone while you're young and having your life derail afterwards is not a foreign concept, and even the fantasizing about what life would have been like had that person stayed alive is very human. Cheryl Mason, despite the very small amount of screen time, is an exceptionally relatable character in this game. Even I can relate to a few parts of her story. Because this story is so grounded in reality, I feel that each ending hits hard. You can feel the relief Cheryl has when she finally lets go of the fantasy, or the desperation and loneliness she exudes while lamenting her father's death. The epilogue tapes also pack a punch, each representing a very real scenario that I'm sure even some of you watching have unfortunately experienced in the past. It's because of this very human experience that I hold this story in high regards, and I truly believe Shattered Memories to have the best story out of the 4 Western Silent Hills. This next one ties into the psych profile, but if you're someone who really enjoyed your first playthrough of this game, you can get an incredible amount of replay value out of it. And I'm not just talking about seeing the different endings or getting the UFO cutscene, although those are certainly factors, but with the pure amount of content that can change with each decision, I think you could easily get 3 or 4 unique playthroughs out of this game. There's a ton of cosmetic changes to characters and locations you could see, several different dialogue options that can play, and even branching paths for the routes you can take during gameplay. With a short runtime of about 5 hours, you can easily sink some time into exploring everything Shattered Memories has to offer, and the more you can squeeze out of a single-player experience, the better the game. Finally, I wanted to comment on the amount of effort put into some of the side content in this game, because it's really impressive just how many voice lines there are. First off, the echo messages, although they don't make total sense until after you complete the story, there's quite a bit of them, and each one is integral to Cheryl's mental state. These echoes define Cheryl's person, her background, why she acts the way she does, her trauma and struggles. It's all there for you to find. Of course, there's the picture messages and texts that also play a part in unraveling Cheryl's history, but outside of her, there's a lot of effort put into the town of Silent Hill itself. I can't tell you how many numbers I called around the town, just scattered across signs and flyers, each one having their own fully voiced interactions, and in a few ways, these somewhat make up for the lack of environmental design. I think this is probably one of the smaller features that fans of this title appreciate the most, because through these dialogues, Silent Hill feels more alive than ever. As we come to a close on Cheryl Mason's turmoil with the passing of her father, we also close a chapter on this channel. Over the past couple of years, I've spent a lot of time covering the Western Silent Hill games, and it's a bittersweet feeling to finally arrive at our last story. And what a story to end off on. The human nature of this narrative is unmatched by many in this franchise. And although the gameplay has more than a few flaws, I don't think I'll regret giving Shattered Memories a try. Silent Hill Shattered Memories tries a lot and fails a lot, but the most important details shine through the rubble, and if you're someone that can stand the complete 180 from the style of previous Silent Hill games, I think you'll end up having a decent time with this title. But as always, what did you think about Shattered Memories? Did it live up to your expectations, or did this new take on an old formula stray too far for you to enjoy? I'd love to hear all of your guys' thoughts in the comments below, and let me know how you enjoyed the video. I'm always looking to improve, and you guys are an important step in that. But until our next deep dive into an unsettling atmosphere, I thank you all for watching. Hey everyone, Unscripted Atlas here. I wanted to thank you again for watching to the very end of this video. It means the world to me. But more specifically, I wanted to thank you guys for the incredibly supportive comments you guys have left on my previous videos over the past couple of weeks. Truthfully, it makes me a little anxious opening the comments sometimes. I don't know how these videos are going to be received, and I spend a lot of time on them. But every time I get the courage to open the comments, you guys blow me away with how kind and informative you are about these videos. Again, you really help me shape these videos into what they are today, and I'm always looking to improve them, so thank you from the bottom of my heart. I do want to quickly apologize for how long it took for this video to come out. It's partly because I wanted this final Silent Hill video, the series that introduced a lot of you guys to me, to be the best version of this video that it could be. And also, I had a lot of personal stuff going on during the making of this video. I actually got engaged while working on this video, so that took some time away, for sure. But I'm back on track now, and I've already got some ideas for the next series or games I want to cover. Speaking of, if you guys have any ideas on horror games you'd like to see me cover on this channel, please leave a comment and let me know. Some of you guys have already left really great suggestions that I'm looking into, so keep them coming, because I'm gonna need your guys' help. Anyway, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I just got a few things to run through here. First off, if you enjoy these videos and want to stay up to date with what I'm working on, consider joining my Discord, where I give frequent progress updates and announce when these videos go live. You don't have to chat there if that's not your thing, it's just a great way to stay connected. And if you can't get enough of me, you can check out my Twitch channel, where I play horror and horror-adjacent games live, as well as my second channel here on YouTube, where you'll get to see extended moments from these videos that didn't quite make the cut. The links to all of that will be in the description of this video, so check that out if you're interested. But I think that's all I have to say. Again, thank you all for watching. It means a lot to me. And I hope you have a great rest of your day, or night, or whenever you're watching this. Yeah, that's it.